Everyone loves this simple baked pasta dish with pasta, beef, onion, red pepper, garlic, a bunch of herbs and spices, ricotta cheese, Parmesan cheese, and more cheese in the form of mozzarella. Well, it all goes into this really delicious Italian stuffed shells with ground beef recipe. And I'm going to show you in this really long form cook with me video exactly how I go through all of the steps to making it. So the very first thing that I do here is I prepare the ingredients, and that starts with dicing up the onions. Now, I love using onions and red peppers in recipes. I think that they're just some of the easiest vegetables to incorporate into everything. So that's why you'll see them in so many of my dishes, especially any Italian dishes that I make. Once I have the different ingredients diced up, it's time to heat a large skillet on the stove to about medium high. And so I add the olive oil and then let it heat until the olive oil is hot and shiny. Then it's time to add the pound of ground beef, add the diced onion, the diced red pepper, the garlic, salt, pepper, parsley, and oregano. Those are dried herbs and spices that are added in at this point that really give it that Italian ground beef flavor. So sometimes I'll measure out all of the spices, and other times I'll just use this pasta sprinkle or another Italian blend that I have, just because it's easier if I'm in a rush. This Italian ground beef filling for the stuffed shells is cooked together with the red pepper, garlic, and all those vegetables for about 10 minutes. And as you go along, you break down the beef so all of it browns and forms in little pieces, little like beef crumbles that are going to be easier to mix in with the ricotta filling for stuffed shells. So once the ground beef filling for the stuffed shells is done browning on the stove, it's time to remove it from the heat and strain it on a plate lined with paper towel. Now, it may not be too greasy, it might be drier, and if so, you might not need to do that step, but I just think it always ends up a little bit cleaner of a stuffed shells filling if you do that. So just a quick note about cooking the pasta: don't overcook the pasta, since the stuffed pasta will be finished cooking in the oven. You just want to cook that pasta to al dente, so I recommend choosing jumbo shells or large shells, as they're called, that are, of higher quality at the store. Usually I look for like something with Italian packaging or something on it for a nice dish like these stuffed shells with ground beef. But I don't know, I would just say always choose the lower minute, the time setting. And if it's 4 to 6 minutes, always choose 4 and take it out right at that mark, because you don't want to get it too mushy if you're going to be finishing it in the oven. So it's time to set out a baking dish that's medium size and set the oven to 350 degrees. Now, this is also when you're going to start combining the fillings, so you want to make sure you have your ricotta and other cheeses on hand. So to mix together the filling for the stuffing, you're going to take a large bowl and gently combine the cooked beef mixture with ricotta cheese, Parmesan cheese, and the 1 cup of pasta sauce. You can see the note on sipbitego.com under this recipe for Italian stuffed shells with ground beef to learn exactly how to substitute out pasta sauce with tomato sauce and some Italian spices. That's pretty much what I do most of the time. If I have some leftover crushed tomatoes, I'll turn it into a sauce for this. But anyways, you can always just use pasta sauce, and it's super simple. So into the bowl, everything goes. Again, it's the cooked beef mixture for the stuffed shells with the ricotta cheese, Parmesan cheese, and a cup of pasta sauce. Then you need to add a little bit of salt and pepper to the filling mixture if you want. I leave this up to your discretion because I don't know what type of pasta sauce you're using for stuffed shells, and I don't know if it has salt in it or if you're starting with something else. So anyways, use some salt and pepper at this point if you want, and then it's time to stuff the shells with the filling mixture and add them to the medium-sized baking dish you have already set out ready to go. Doesn't that look beautiful? I love how it all comes together. It kind of looks more like a vodka sauce because it has that creaminess in it. And here I'm just adding a little bit extra spices because I was working with canned tomatoes. And so here I'm putting in all of the cheeses. I love to use fresh Parmesan cheese on the block. It always tastes super strong when it's on the block. I really like that. And then mixing it all together. I have way more filling than I need the shells for. So if you end up in that predicament also, you can just save it and make baked rigatoni for the next night. I also have a recipe for that at sipbitego.com. Or you could just freeze the filling and thaw it and use it another time to make either the baked rigatoni dish or another stuffed shells dish. So there's plenty of things to do with any leftover pasta sauce or pasta filling from the stuffed shells recipe. So here the shells are cooked and they're getting stuffed with the mixture. I just do them one at a time. I go pretty quickly once I get the hang of it. I use a spoon that's the right size to really get one solid scoop in there, maybe 2 scoops. And then I move on to the next one. Now you'll see in here I actually forgot to cover the bottom of the dish with 1 cup of pasta sauce. And that means that if you forget to do that, it'll probably be okay, but some of the pasta might burn or stick to the bottom, or some of the cheese that spills over might stick to the bottom of your baking dish. It really depends what type of material your baking dish is made out of. So you definitely want to put the cup of pasta sauce at the bottom of the stuffed shells dish so you don't run into any issues there. It's the same for my Italian stuffed red peppers recipe, and it's also done in lasagnas and things like that. So stuffing the shells is a really fun part of this recipe, but it comes together really quickly after this assembling the stuffed pasta shells portion of the recipe goes. So then you throw on some pasta sauce and then cheese on top. This is where a lot of like that mozzarella cheese comes in because it's going to start bubbling over that sauce. It's going to be really delicious as it melts in there, and the dish looks so beautiful at this point. So it's time to top with the remaining cheese, like I said, and then you're going to go ahead and bake the stuffed shells with a ground beef filling for about 20 minutes until the cheese is melted. Definitely don't take it out before the cheese is starting to get gooey and bubbly. You need to leave it in there for probably about 20 minutes, but keep checking on it in like 2-minute increments to see if it's done if you're just not sure. And another thing you might want to keep in mind that it's possible that your oven has hot spots. So maybe 1/2 of the top will become bubbly and the other half of the cheese on top of the baked pasta won't be bubbly. You should be turning the casserole dish in the oven so you don't run into that sort of problem. So at 20-minute mark, if it isn't finished cooking, you can turn it 180 and then let it cook for a few more minutes just to make sure all of your oven is cooking the pasta dish evenly. So when it comes out, it's nice and gooey and bubbly. I had to go help with some things with the baby in between, so this is a little bit, it had been sitting out for a minute, but it was really gooey and cheesy at first, and I'm adding some fresh herbs from my garden, my like kitchen garden. It's a container garden that I have indoors. There's been a lot of sun in Portland, well, up until a few weeks ago, but it was a nice spring, and so the kitchen herbs were growing pretty strongly, and I'm so happy to have basil coming in. It's just so great to cook with fresh herbs. So anyways, I took some lovely photos. We really enjoyed this stuffed shells dish. It is definitely a recipe that's on rotation in my house. We just love the filling. It's creamy, it's tomato based, it's really good. And stuffed shells are really pretty if you're gonna serve a dinner event or if you wanna make it ahead. Like, it's a really nice complete meal in itself. You could just add a salad to the stuffed shells or cook up some green beans or something like that to serve on the side. But really, these are beautiful on a plate, and I think everyone always looks forward to seeing them, even though maybe it's kind of a dish from like the 90s or something. I think there's still plenty of things that you can do with stuffed shells to enjoy them today. Well, don't forget to subscribe to the SIPbitego channel on YouTube and get the printed recipe for this at sipbitego.com. I know that I always like to have a printed recipe so I can write notes on it. I actually print all the recipes from my site as well and put them in my recipe book. And sometimes we'll continue to make notes on them and come up with other recipes. So anyways, make sure to go to sipbitego.com and subscribe to the SIPbitego channel on YouTube to get more tasty recipes. And a lot of the recipes that I'm making in real time can be found at the SIPbitego Instagram account. So anyways, I hope that you have a wonderful and delicious day. Cheers!